Something buried beneath you is already open. The ocean floor looks still. It looks empty. It looks safe. It is none of those things. Beneath the sand, something is waiting. It has been waiting for a very long time. It does not move. It does not need to. It only needs you to come close enough. The bobbit worm can reach 3 meters in length. That is longer than most people's living rooms. It spends its entire life buried vertically in the seafloor. Its body goes straight down into the dark. You would never know it was there. Only the tips of its jaws break the surface of the sand. 5 antennae, barely visible, fan out just above the sediment. They are not decorative. They are sensory. They are waiting for a vibration. The moment something swims close enough, the worm strikes. The strike happens in milliseconds. Faster than a human eye can track. Faster than a human brain can register what just happened. One moment, there is a fish. The next moment, there is not. The worm does not chase. It does not pursue. It simply opens, waits, and takes. The jaws it uses are not like any jaw you have seen. They are called sclerotized mandibles. They work like a scissor trap, closing from multiple directions simultaneously. The force is enough to cut prey clean in half, not to wound it, not to stun it, to bisect it mid-strike. The worm does not eat at the surface. It pulls what it catches straight down into the sand, into the dark, into itself, and then the jaws open again, and the antennae fan out again, and the waiting begins again. Here is what most people never hear about this animal. It is not rare. It does not live only in some remote trench far from human reach. It lives in shallow tropical reefs, in the same reefs where people dive, where people swim, where people trail their hands through the water and feel at peace. It lives there, buried in numbers that are difficult to census, because you cannot count what you cannot see. Aquariums have discovered bobbit worms inside their tanks months after setup, not because the worm was introduced deliberately, because it arrived as a juvenile, hidden inside live rock. It grew, it buried itself, it began taking fish, and nobody knew it was there until the fish started disappearing. Think about what that means. This animal is so patient, so still, so perfectly concealed that trained aquarists did not notice it. In a tank they maintain daily. This is happening right now in reefs across the Indo-Pacific, in the sediment beneath boats, beneath dive sites, beneath the surface that looks so still and blue from above. Now consider something darker. The bobbit worm has no eyes in the conventional sense. It does not see you coming. It does not decide to take you. It simply responds to movement, proximity, vibration. It is not malicious. It is not aware of you at all. That is not reassuring. That is worse, because it means there is no negotiation, no warning, no moment where it registers what it is about to do. You are not prey in its mind. You are only a signal. And the signal has arrived. The animal has no brain to speak of, no centralized consciousness. It is largely nerve and jaw and patience. It has been doing this in roughly this form for hundreds of millions of years. Long before there were fish to eat, long before there were reefs to hide in, long before there was anything on this planet that could look at it and feel afraid, it was already here, already buried, already waiting. The name bobbit worm is informal, given by divers. The scientific name is Unus aphroditois. It belongs to a group called polychaetes, segmented marine worms. There are thousands of polychaete species. Most are small, most are harmless. But the logic that produced Unus aphroditois, that a body could become long and patient and armed and invisible, that logic has had hundreds of millions of years to run. And it is still running. In the sand beneath the reef, right now. The antennae are fanned out. The jaws are open. The worm does not know what year it is. It does not know that the ocean is warming. It does not know that the reefs above it are changing. It only knows the signal has not arrived yet. When you look at a photograph of a bobbit worm fully extended, something registers before you can name it. Not disgust, something older. The recognition that the world contains shapes that were never designed with your comfort in mind. That the seafloor has its own architecture, its own logic, and that logic includes this. A 3-meter ambush predator, invisible, patient, ancient, and entirely real. Not in the deep ocean, not in a horror film, in the shallows, in the sand, in the reef that looked so beautiful from the boat. The ocean floor looks still, it looks empty. But something down there just felt your shadow pass over the water, and the antennae moved. The worm has no fixed territory. It does not claim a burrow and stay there for life. When conditions shift, it simply moves through the substrate, unseen, and opens a new entrance somewhere else. The opening in the sand closes behind it. There is no trace. There is only a new patch of seafloor that looks exactly like the patch beside it. Its body grows continuously throughout its life. There is no fixed adult size. The 3-meter specimens are not the largest on record. They are simply the largest that have been found. What has not been found is a different question. The worm's jaws can regenerate if damaged. If something fights back, the worm does not become less dangerous. It heals and waits, and the jaws return. The antennae are capable of detecting not just movement, but chemical signals in the water. The faint biological trace you leave simply by being present in the ocean. You do not have to touch the sand. You do not have to swim close. You only have to be there. Divers who have encountered a bobbit worm mid-strike describe the motion as a disappearance, not an attack, but an erasure, too fast for the word strike to feel accurate. The fish was there, and then the sand was there, and those were the only two facts. The worm does not fully emerge to feed. Its lower body remains anchored in the sediment at all times. No one knows exactly how deep that anchor goes. The longest confirmed specimens were measured only because they were excavated from aquarium rock, a controlled environment, a finite space. In open sediment, the depth of the burrow has no such limit. The worm's segmented body can compress, expand, and brace against the walls of its tunnel. It is, in a mechanical sense, stronger than it looks. Stronger than something that never moves has any reason to be, because it does not use that strength to chase. It uses it to hold. Once the jaws close and the prey is pulled downward, the worm braces itself against the earth itself. The earth does not let go. Polychaete worms as a group predate the Cambrian explosion. Their body plan is one of the oldest continuous solutions to survival on this planet. It has not needed significant revision. That is not a sign of simplicity. That is a sign of something that worked so well the universe saw no reason to change it. The reef above the worm is often described as one of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth. Thousands of species, elaborate, colorful, interdependent. The worm participates in none of that complexity. It simply removes things from it, quietly, from below. There are reefs that scientists have studied for decades, cataloged, photographed, mapped, where the bobbit worm population in the substrate remains effectively unknown. Not because the technology to find them doesn't exist, because no one has looked, because the sand looks uniform, because the sand always looks uniform. Here are new body beats to continue and deepen the script. The worm does not compete with other predators on the reef. It does not need to. It occupies a layer of the world that most predators never think to contest. Beneath the visible, beneath the surface that light still reaches, in the zone where the reef ends and the substrate begins. That boundary is not a wall. It is a threshold, and something is stationed at it. Scientists studying reef fish populations have noted localized disappearances, specific species, specific areas, no obvious cause, no predator observed, no carcass, no evidence of disease, just absence, accumulating slowly in one patch of otherwise unremarkable sand. The worm does not announce itself through the food web. It removes from it silently, and the reef adjusts around the gap without ever knowing what made it. There is a behavior documented in reef fish that researchers initially found puzzling. Certain species will avoid specific patches of sand entirely, not because of anything visible, not because of any learned association with a predator they have seen. They simply will not cross that patch. They route around it. Something in their evolutionary memory has learned to read the sand. You have not. The worm does not excrete in any way that marks its position. It produces no waste that rises to the surface. It leaves no biological trace outside the burrow. In chemical terms, it is almost invisible. In physical terms, it is almost invisible. In every sense might warn you, it is almost invisible. Almost is doing a great deal of work in that sentence. Ocean warming is expanding the range of tropical species. Reefs that did not previously host Eunice aphroditois are shifting into the thermal conditions it prefers. The substrate of those reefs is unchanged. The sand still looks the same, but the conditions that once made them uninhabitable to this animal are quietly dissolving. The worm is not migrating. It is simply finding that more of the world is now suitable. When aquarists finally locate a bobbit worm in an established tank, they describe the excavation as disorienting. The animal is always longer than expected, always deeper than expected. The burrow always extends further into the rock than the geometry of the tank seems to allow, as if the worm has found space that should not be there, as if it is very good at finding space that should not be there. The worm has no larval stage that resembles its adult form. It begins small, planktonic drifting, invisible in an entirely different way. It settles, it buries, it begins growing toward whatever size the substrate allows. Somewhere in a reef right now, one is only a few centimeters long, patient already learning the sand, already waiting for the signal that has not yet arrived. The sand looks the same either way.